Lagos never slept. It only hummed, buzzed, and groaned like an overworked machine. From the cracked window of flat 5B, Toby Adewale stared at the flickering bulb in his room as the neighborhood generator rumbled to life. Sweat clung to his skin, and the night's heat pressed down like a stubborn burden. Toby was 29, a struggling architect who had moved to the city with dreams bigger than his wallet. For 3 years he'd submitted countless proposals, pitched brilliant designs, and knocked on doors that refused to open. Yet here he was, broke, behind on rent, and surviving on noodles and hope. As the generator noise filled the air, a soft voice came through the wall. "Excuse me, please? Can you reduce your volume? I'm on a call." Toby frowned, stepping closer to the window. "It's not my generator, madam," he called back, irritation lacing his tone. Pause. Then laughter. Sorry. This building and noise are twins." The voice was light, cultured, confident, yet familiar. Something about it made him smile unconsciously. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the dusty blinds. Toby rushed out in his only neatly ironed shirt, clutching a brown envelope. Another job interview, another chance. The security guard greeted him lazily as he hurried down the stairwell. Then, halfway down the stairs, he nearly collided with a woman carrying coffee and files. The same voice. "Oh, sorry," she exclaimed, steadying herself. Toby froze. She was stunning, tall, caramel skin, wearing a fitted skirt suit that screamed corporate success. He noticed the faint scent of jasmine as she adjusted her glasses and smiled politely. "It's fine," he stammered. "I'm Toby." "Amara," she said. "Nice to meet you, neighbor." What Toby didn't know was that Amara Nwosu wasn't just any neighbor. She was the new CEO of the architecture firm he was about to interview at, Crest Build Designs, one of Lagos' top companies. And that interview would change everything. The air in Crest Build Designs smelled of ambition, perfume, paper, and quiet competition. Toby stood in the waiting area trying to calm his shaking hands. His shirt stuck to his back, his tie was slightly crooked, and his worn shoes had seen better days. But his eyes, they burned with determination. He had rehearsed this moment for weeks. This was his 5th interview in 2 months, and his wallet could barely survive another rejection. "Mr. Adewale Toby?" a voice called. He stood quickly. "Yes, ma'am." "Please come in." Inside the glass-walled office sat a panel of 3 executives. But at the center, seated elegantly behind a sleek desk, her hand resting on a coffee mug, was her Amara. Toby froze mid-step. For a brief moment the world stopped. His mind raced back to last night, the laughter through the wall, the stares, her scent of jasmine. She blinked, equally shocked, before quickly masking her reaction with professionalism. "Please have a seat, Mr. Adewale," she said, her tone calm but her eyes wide with disbelief. Toby sat, heart pounding. The interview began. Questions flew, his answers stumbled at first but grew stronger as he spoke about his passion for architecture. How he believed buildings could tell stories, heal hearts, and stand as symbols of hope. Amara listened quietly, her gaze unreadable. When the others finished their questions, she leaned forward. "Mr. Adewale," she said softly, "you live on the 5th floor of Maple Heights, yes?" He smiled nervously. "Yes, ma'am. Flat 5B. A brief silence. Then she smiled, small, almost playful. "Well, neighbor, you gave a good interview." The room chuckled, but Toby could only swallow hard. Was she teasing him? Or was it just Lagos humor? That evening he returned home drained, confused, and a little embarrassed. He lay on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling fan that barely spun. He kept replaying her words. "You gave a good interview." Was it pity? Professional courtesy? Or something else? Then, a knock on his door. He opened it slowly. There she was, holding 2 takeout boxes. "I figured you might not have cooked," Amara said, smiling gently. "Consider this a neighborly dinner." Toby blinked in disbelief. "You're serious?" "Very." They sat on the floor eating jollof rice by the dim light of his rechargeable lamp. For the first time in months, Toby laughed freely. She laughed too, but somewhere behind her laughter was a secret. A secret that, if revealed, could destroy the fragile peace they'd found that night. The following Monday came with the usual Lagos madness, traffic, horns, and the thick scent of roasted corn along the roadside. Toby straightened his tie nervously as he walked into Crest Build Designs again, but this time as an employee. He could barely believe it when the HR officer handed him his appointment letter the previous Friday. "Congratulations, Mr. Adewale," the woman had said. The board was impressed, especially the new CO. Now, as he walked through the lobby, whispers followed him like shadows. "Wait, that's the new guy Amara personally recommended? I heard she even picked his file herself. Lagos men. They've started playing smart." Toby pretended not to hear, but their words stung. He wasn't some opportunist. He'd worked hard for this. When he entered his new workspace, his colleague Kemi leaned close with a grin. "Congrats, Mr. Fifth Floor," she whispered. He raised a brow. "Excuse me? You and Madam Amara, you live in the same building, ABI? Everyone's talking." Toby sighed deeply. "We're just neighbors. That's all." Kemi chuckled. "And for now." That afternoon he attended his first official project briefing. Amara stood at the head of the table, dressed in a white blouse and gold accessories that glowed under the fluorescent light. She spoke confidently, her words smooth like a river cutting through rock. But Toby couldn't focus. Every time she said, "Mr. Adewale," his chest tightened. When the meeting ended, she called him aside. "Can you stay back for a moment?" He nodded, pulse quickening. When everyone left, she sighed softly. "I didn't mean to cause problems for you. The staff, they can be judgmental." Toby smiled faintly. "It's fine, ma'am. I'm just grateful for the chance." Her eyes softened. "You earned it, Toby. I saw your designs, you have a gift." For a long moment, their eyes locked, two souls from different worlds caught in the same heartbeat. But before either could speak further, Amara's phone buzzed. She glanced at the caller ID and her expression changed. "Excuse me," she murmured, stepping away. Toby caught a glimpse of the name on her screen before she turned, "Dad." And that was the first hint that Amara's world was far more complicated than it looked. That night, back at the apartment, Toby sat by his window sketching a new building design, inspired by her. A structure that stood tall despite the cracks in its walls. But downstairs, someone was watching them both, a jealous coworker who had seen Amara knock on his door days ago. And that envy was about to start a rumor that could ruin everything. The city had begun to come alive again. The sound of honking cars, chatter, and the distant rumble of a passing train filled the air. Teo adjusted his tie as he entered Sunrise Cafe, a cozy corner spot where he spent his mornings before work. He ordered his usual black coffee and croissant, hoping to drown his frustration in caffeine. He had recently moved to Lagos after losing his small business in Ibadan. The city was his last hope, a place where dreams either took flight or died silently. As he sat scrolling through job listings on his cracked phone, a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" He looked up and for a moment the world paused. Standing before him was a woman with caramel skin, braided hair that glimmered in the morning light, and eyes that carried both fire and sadness. Her presence was disarming, like a melody played in the middle of chaos. "No, please," Teo said, gesturing to the empty chair. She smiled politely and sat down. For a few minutes, silence stretched between them. Teo returned to his phone, but curiosity got the better of him. "Rough morning?" he asked softly. She laughed, a light, almost musical sound. "Something like that. Deadlines, stress, life." He smiled. "You sound like Lagos itself." She turned to him, amused. "And what about you? You look like someone fighting Lagos." He chuckled. "You could say that. I'm just trying to start over." Her gaze softened. "Aren't we all?" That brief conversation was the spark of something neither of them understood yet. But from that day, Teo never missed his morning coffee again. Days turned into weeks, and every morning Teo found himself back at Sunrise Cafe. Sometimes he arrived early, pretending to check emails just to see her walk in. Other times she was already there, seated at their usual corner, sipping her latte with quiet grace. Her name was Amara. She worked for a top real estate firm in Lagos, a world far from Teo's struggling one. Yet their conversations flowed effortlessly, from politics to dreams, from heartbreaks to hopes. Still, there was something mysterious about her. She spoke with poise, but her eyes often carried a shadow, the kind born from pain. One morning, as rain poured heavily outside, Teo noticed she wasn't her usual calm self. Her hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through her phone. "Everything okay?" he asked. She hesitated, then forced a smile. Just work drama. But Teo had learned to read the truth behind smiles. You sure it's work? Amara sighed, looking out the window. My ex is back. He's been calling non-stop. The kind of man who doesn't understand no. Teo's heart tightened. He wanted to reach out to protect her, though they barely knew each other beyond coffee and conversation. Maybe you should block him, he said gently. She gave a bitter laugh. I wish it were that simple. He's my boss. The silence that followed was deafening. The rain outside only made it heavier. That day, Teo realized that behind Amara's beauty was a story of control, fear, and quiet strength. And for the first time, he wasn't sure whether he was falling for her, or just drawn to her pain. The following week, Teo noticed Amara's smile fade more often than it appeared. She was there physically, sitting in the cafe, but her mind seemed far away. Her laughter came out forced, her eyes darker than before. Amara, he said softly one morning, you don't look okay. Talk to me. She hesitated, stirring her coffee in silence. You ever feel trapped, Teo? Like, even when you walk free, someone still owns your shadow? He nodded slowly. I felt that way. When I lost my shop in Ibadan, I owed money to people who didn't forget. I'd walk the streets and feel like my name still belonged to my debt. Her eyes met his, weary, grateful. Then you understand. What did he do? Teo asked quietly. She sighed. I tried to end it years ago, but my ex, Damien, is a powerful man. He helped me climb the corporate ladder, but when I left him, he made sure every door I knocked on stayed closed. The job I have now. He's still there pulling strings. I can't breathe. Teo clenched his jaw. You deserve peace, Amara. Not fear. She smiled faintly as if hearing those words for the first time. You talk like someone who's never given up on anything. Because I haven't, he said firmly. Not even on people who think they're broken. Something shifted between them then. The air grew thick, intimate, fragile. Teo reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away. For a moment, it felt like the city slowed down just for them. But then her phone rang. The name Damien flashed on the screen. Her hand trembled. She silenced the call instantly, but Teo had already seen the fear in her eyes. Maybe I should go, she whispered. Before you get dragged into this too. He leaned forward. Too late for that. Amara looked at him, her eyes glistening, a mix of love and warning. You don't know what kind of man he is. And as she walked out into the rain, Teo knew one thing for certain. He was already too deep to turn back. It had been 3 days since Teo last saw Amara. No texts. No calls. Just silence. Each morning, he still came to Sunrise Cafe, hoping she'd walk through the door like she always did, smiling softly, pretending life wasn't falling apart behind her calm eyes. But this time the chair across from him stayed empty. He couldn't focus. The city noise blurred into static. The laughter, the engines, the shouting vendors, all drowned beneath the worry eating at him. Then one evening his phone buzzed. Unknown number, if you care about Amara, stay away from her. Teo froze. His heart began to pound as he reread the message. There was no name, but he didn't need one. He knew who it was. Damien. That night, sleep abandoned him. His thoughts swirled between fear and defiance. He barely knew Amara, yet she had become the one thing that made him feel alive again. And now that feeling was being threatened. The next morning, Teo made a bold decision, to find her. He waited by her office building in Victoria Island, watching as employees streamed out for lunch. And then there she was, walking quickly, sunglasses on, clutching her bag tightly like she was hiding something more than just personal belongings. Amara, he called out. She froze. When she turned, her eyes filled with both relief and panic. Teo, what are you doing here? I had to make sure you're okay. You shouldn't have come, she whispered, looking around nervously. Damien's men are watching. Let them watch, he said, stepping closer. I'm not afraid of him. Her eyes softened. You don't understand. He doesn't fight fair. He ruins lives quietly. I've had my life ruined before, Teo said firmly. I'm not scared to start over again, but I won't walk away from someone who needs me. For a moment, Amara just stared at him, torn between gratitude and fear. Then unexpectedly she hugged him. It was a desperate, trembling hug that said more than words ever could. I don't know why, she whispered, but when you talk I almost believe I can be free again. But as they pulled apart, Teo noticed a black car parked across the street. A man inside lowered his sunglasses and stared at him coldly. It was the first time Teo realized this wasn't just about love anymore. It was about survival. The air was thick that evening. Lagos traffic roared like thunder, and the golden glow of streetlights painted long shadows on the wet road. Teo walked home from the cafe, his mind still replaying Amara's trembling voice, the hug and that black car watching them. Halfway down the street, a dark SUV pulled up beside him. The tinted window rolled down slowly. "Teo Adewale?" a deep voice called. Teo stopped. "Who's asking?" The door opened. Two men in black suits stepped out, their expressions sharp and emotionless. One of them gestured. "Our boss wants a word." Before he could protest, they grabbed his arms and shoved him into the car. Inside, the air smelled of expensive cologne and quiet menace. Sitting across from him was Damien Okoro, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that carried the cold patience of a predator. He wore power like a second skin. "So," Damien said, his voice calm but deadly, "you're the mechanic trying to play Prince Charming." Teo glared at him. "If you're here to threaten me, you're wasting your time." Damien smirked. "Threaten? No. I just want to remind you of balance. You see, Amara's world and yours, they don't mix. She's made for people like me. Not dreamers like you." "I don't care what world she's from," Teo shot back. "She deserves peace, not a prison." Damien's smile vanished. He leaned forward, voice low and venomous. "You think love can save her? You have no idea what I control. Her job. Her contracts. Her future. I could erase you with one phone call." Teo didn't flinch. "Then make the call. But if you ever touch her again, I'll fight you, even if it kills me." For a moment, silence filled the car. Then Damien chuckled darkly. "You're either brave or foolish. Either way, you'll learn." The SUV stopped abruptly. The men dragged Teo out, shoving him onto the sidewalk. As the car sped away, Damien's voice echoed from the open window. "You can't protect what doesn't belong to you." Teo stood in the rain, his fists clenched, blood dripping from a cut on his lip, but his resolve burned hotter than ever. That night he made a vow. He wouldn't just protect Amara. He would expose Damien for the monster he was, even if it meant losing everything again. Weeks passed like storms. Teo moved like a ghost through the city, quiet but determined. He started asking questions, tracing Damien's business deals, his shell companies, and the people he had ruined. What he found was worse than he imagined: corruption, fraud, intimidation, all buried beneath money and influence. At the same time, Amara was barely holding herself together. Her smile had become an armor, her strength a mask. Damien had begun to suspect her distance. Every moment at work felt like walking through fire. One night, she showed up at Teo's small apartment in Yaba, soaked from the rain. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "He's destroying me from the inside." Teo stepped closer, took her trembling hands and said, "Then let's end it, together." He revealed a folder filled with printed documents, bank transfers, blackmail messages, contract records. Evidence that could bury Damien. Amara gasped. "How did you get all this?" "Let's just say Lagos isn't as loyal to money as Damien thinks," Teo replied, his eyes burning with quiet resolve. The plan was dangerous. They would leak the evidence to the media and report it anonymously through a journalist friend Teo had helped years ago. It was their only chance. The next day everything exploded. Damien's name hit every major headline. Business tycoon linked to fraud and extortion. News anchors repeated his downfall like gospel. Within hours, his empire began to crumble. But victory didn't come without fear. That night, as Teo and Amara hid in his apartment, they heard tires screech outside. Men's voices echoed in the rain. "Stay here," Teo whispered. "No, please." He kissed her forehead gently. "Trust me." When the men burst through the door, Teo met them head-on. There was shouting, chaos, then silence. Minutes later, sirens wailed. Police had arrived, tipped off by the journalist. Damien's men were arrested, and the tycoon himself was caught trying to flee the country. As dawn broke, Teo stood on the balcony, blood on his shirt, the city glowing golden beneath him. Amara walked up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist, tears streaming down her face. "It's over," she whispered. "No," Teo said softly. It's just beginning. Months later, the world saw a different version of them. Amara, free and radiant, launched her own real estate firm, one built on integrity. Teo, no longer the struggling mechanic, became her business partner and the man who reminded her what love felt like, safe, strong, and real. During the company's grand opening, reporters asked Teo how he found the courage to face a man like Damien. He smiled. When you've lost everything once, fear becomes useless. Love becomes enough. The crowd applauded. Amara looked at him with pride, her heart swelling with the truth they both knew. Love wasn't their weakness. It was their weapon. And under the Lagos sun, two souls who had been broken by power finally built something greater, together.